Okay, hey everyone. I have decided to or try at least to do a commentary video on this fire alarm inspection. I did this high school fire alarm inspection I posted like 6 years ago. It was 6 years ago. It was in 2015. And I've seen stuff like this on the internet before, not necessarily fire alarm stuff, but people doing commentary over their stuff. And I thought, well, maybe this would be interesting to do. I know there's been tons of questions over the years on this one in particular. So I'm going to try to cover as much as I remember, and I'm sure I will miss stuff. So whatever I miss, or if I am not clear, please comment and like, comment, subscribe. Right? That's what they say. And I will answer any questions. But I'm going to try to answer everything that I can remember anyway. So right off the bat, I'm going to play this, and then we're going to talk about something right away. So here we go. Oh, the stopper. So this thing right here is called a stopper. It is, there's two versions of this. There's this one, and then there's one that looks exactly the same, but it has a little siren in it. This one is here mainly because this is near the gym, and it's mainly for protection. Most of the time, they have the little siren in them so that when you pull the cover off, it's just a local siren that goes off. And the whole point of that is to scare people away from pulling it as a false alarm, and they are very effective in that, doing that. So, but that's why that's why they're usually here. This one is here without the siren on it, just to protect the pull station. Because, and we'll get into that in a second. These simplex pull stations, it's a button that's held in by the handle, so that which is interesting. When the button is pressed, it's off, and when it comes out, it's on. So it's opposite of what you would think a normal button would work. It's basically a normally closed button, and then when you press, or it's a normally closed button, and then when you press it, it's open and it's off. So so basically when this goes off, you'll hear. Let's see here. I think it's about a 1.5 second delay before it trips. So watch the timer here. Let's see here. So 11, 12, 14. Yeah, okay. So about a 1.5 seconds. That is a phenomenon that I've only seen with simplex panels, except for the more recent panels, which we'll get into in another video. But it takes about a 1.5 seconds for it to trip, and if you untrip it, I guess you could say, if I close that pull station within that time, it won't trip. So normally I wouldn't mention that, but it matters, because in the next version of this, you'll see that it trips a lot quicker because it's a new panel. Because they don't do that anymore. So anyway, here we go. So let's see here. All right. So let me stop. All right. So here on the right, these dark windows, this is the pool area. Now you don't see inside the pool area in this video or in the next one. The reason for that is because it was wet. And I didn't want to slide and wipe out, although that probably would have been funny. But I just didn't go in there during this. Now this was at the end of the day. I had already tested this. There was nobody around. So I had already done a thorough test and decided to make a video. So I don't go absolutely everywhere in this video, but I normally would. The pool matters because they have since replaced the panel to specifically put equipment in this area. There were some more duct detectors, and it just needed to be replaced because there was no more expandability on the existing panel, and they had to go with an addressable solution or a hybrid solution. And like I said, we'll get into that in the next video, but I just wanted to mention that. So let's see here. Oh, volume. Guess we don't need to listen to that. So right off the bat, I know that at some point somebody commented that they figured out which school this was because they paused it, and it just never occurred to me that people would do that. But schools are public. I'm sure it's not a big deal, but this was the end of the day. I didn't ask permission. I'm sure they wouldn't care. But if you know where this is, can you just keep it to yourself? It's just, that way I don't want anybody to complain and then I'll have to take the video down because a lot of people have watched it. So that's basically all I got to say about that. So we are at one end of the school. We're going to make our way all the way to the other end, where the panel is located, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I did this inspection, I'm going to say probably 13 or 14 times. It was done biannually. and I did it between 2013 and 2019. This is when I worked for this company. And biannual in New York State is schools and nursing homes and a few other things. Biannual every 6 months. The most private locations are required once a year. And then the only other exception to that is actually the reason that I had this job is there also are state-owned homes for developmentally disabled and autistic people. They're literally houses that are staffed, and because they need staff on hand 24/7. A lot of them are not mobile and yada yada yada. Anyway, those are required quarterly, and I think we had like 165 of them. So it was 2 full-time jobs because they were every 3 months, and that's how I got this job. In New York State, I might have to pause this to tell this story, but in New York State, you need a license. Your company needs a license to do fire, security, CCTV, burglar alarms, door access, stuff like that. I didn't know that when I started doing cameras, and I found out, and I'm like, well, I probably ought to do this. So I paid or whatever. I took the classes, and I ran into this guy who worked for a small company. He'd been there since it had opened back in the 70s. Excuse me. And the owner had died, and the license is tied to an individual. So he was taking the classes again to renew the license for the company. We became friends during the class. It was several classes over the course of a few months. And at one point, he did the old slip the card my way. Hey, if you ever need any work, we just took a bunch of inspections on. And at that point, it was really a pain in the neck working on my own. And I said, sure, what not? I went and talked to him, and that's how I ended up doing this. I didn't know anything about fire alarms when I started it. I learned everything from the guys I worked with, a great bunch of guys, 3 or 4 guys that taught me everything I know. Literally everything I know I learned from these guys, and that's how I ended up doing this kind of thing. And this school in particular was one of the owners of the company or one of the relatives lived in this area, and they went to this school and knew people, and that's how things are done around here. So they got the contract to do the fire alarm inspections for all the schools except one of the elementary schools, which was newer and was still under contract with EST Edwards. They come into play because they also did some work on this system, and we'll get into that later. But ultimately, that's how I ended up doing this inspection. And so let's keep going here. I'm going to try to remember as much as I can, but I've never done this before, so just bear with me. At some point, you'll see me smack one of these, and I think it's come up in the comments before. The reason for that is that these are electromechanical horns, basically a piece of metal with a buzzer on it that physically moves back and forth. And in areas that have sticky dust, like kitchens, greasy dust, or shop areas, or wet areas, eventually the metal would get damaged or coated, and they would stop working, or the tones would change. And I found that literally smacking them with my hand would wake them back up. I think one of them I did it to, I ended up having to replace. Now, I did do this inspection again, and I recorded it in 2018, and I'm going to post that. So, and it's a much higher quality version, so I'm sure everybody will like to see that. I know I've been promising it in the comments for a while. It's just, life is what it is, and then it happened. I don't think you're allowed to say shoot. All right, I'll have to beep that out. The thing that made us all stay home for a while happened, and so it is what it is. Anyway, where are we now? So this one was in the winter. So this was February break. Yeah, in the summer one, which was in August, there was always more people around, so I don't think I could have done the video then. We're right at the main entrance here. That was the Annunciator, so that's the office on the left. I think that's the library right there. I didn't go in there in either of the videos, but like I said, I did before. It's just I was just kind of doing this real quick at the end of the day. And let's see what else. Man, I thought I'd have more to say, but I guess not. I was a one-man show. I very rarely needed any help with anything. I would sometimes, if they were around, one of the other guys would help me do the testing. But this is an 8-hour inspection. It's 200-some smokes. We used canned smoke to test everything. That was just what we did. It's It's not required. The rules basically say that if it's manufacturer specifications, like for example on a smoke detector, they got a little button you can press, simulates an alarm condition. It is legally valid, but we preferred to blow canned smoke, which I still do. Um, that had its drawbacks. If you didn't fan them out enough and there was no air movement, I had this happen. You would go home and then you'd get a call that the fire alarm tripped 4 hours later because there was some smoke and the fire department got dispatched. I tried not to have that happen, but it did happen occasionally. But just an interesting side note. So yeah, this is the cafeteria. I think this is where. I think it's that one over there. Yeah, it's a higher pitch. I think that one quit working in the next inspection, so I give her a smack. Yeah, I don't know how well that worked, but it did work. So just take my word for it. And let's see what else about this. Okay, so the auditorium, which we'll get up to, there is the syncing and the temporal code, which you don't hear. These are incontinuous, and the reason for that is very simple. It was technically basically impossible or extremely difficult to get that to work. There were, I believe, 5 or 6 NAC expanders. A NAC expander is essentially a power supply that takes the output of the alarms circuit and then repeats it. So it's basically a power supply that passes through, and so you can power more alarms. They are the biggest current draw in a fire alarm system. They draw a ton, especially these old ones. And getting this normally on a smaller system, I would if all of the AVs are the same, they have a little protocol that they listen to that sends a signal over the line and syncs the strobes and the AVs. And I never could get it to work here, so I just left it in continuous. I didn't do temporal because it turned them on and off at a rate, whatever the rate for temporal is, and it was not on long enough for the strobes to work very well. So they would either be very slow or not work at all. So that's why it is in continuous. With the exception of the auditorium, has EST AVs in it, and those are synced. And I have no idea how they did that. I never found the NAC expander. I looked for it. It must have been somewhere. And I just, to this day, I don't know. I don't work for that company anymore, so I don't know what happened. Our company got bought out by another company, and I hated it there, so I went back on my own, and that's what I do now. So now we are going down the hall. This is the left side. Well, we just turn around. We were on the left side of the auditorium. We're going to go back down the hall, I think stick around the bathroom, and then we're going to go down the hallway, and you're going to hear a different AV, which I replaced at some point. They did a drill, and one of them didn't work, so we went on an off time and did it. It is a system sensor, I believe P2R. I'm not good with model numbers. So that's kind of an oddball in the system. And then we'll go into the auditorium and we'll go up the crazy spiral staircase to the panel, and I will pause and attempt to explain as best I can kind of how the system worked. I think I did an overview. I don't know if it's been so long since I did this. I don't remember if I posted it or if I haven't posted it yet, but so there might be some repeat here, but whatever. Yeah, it's up here on the right at the end of the hall down by the bathrooms there. Let's see here. Yeah, you can hear it now. And so that's why that's there. That was a bad horn strobe, and that's what I had in my van. That's what we put in. We did Firelight and System Sensor. Honeywell owns it all now. I like them. We couldn't buy Simplex stuff if we wanted to. They won't sell to you. Basically, and interestingly enough, all I know about Simplex I learned from Simplex techs or from getting manuals off the internet. It's available on the internet, and that's just kind of how you figure it out. So, seizure warning, if anybody has that. I guess I probably should have said that ahead of time. The lighting, it's not as dark in here as it looks. It's just a crappy camera. I think I did it with my phone. And so we're going to go up the ramp there. To the left of that doorway is the stairs. You'll see it. Go up the stairs and to the panels, and then I'll pause and go through it, and I guess that'll be that. Hopefully this will answer some questions, or you guys will find it interesting. And again, if you have more questions, I missed something, please ask. Like, comment, and subscribe. Well, that was great. I didn't even say that right. All right. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Let me find a good place to pause. I guess I wanted to show the staircase. Yeah, that thing is serious business. All right. So up here, this this panel, this empty panel, is the original panel for the system, for the building. It was a standard electric time panel, old relay controlled with a code wheel, and single stroke bells and big metal pull stations. Cool stuff. I collect all that stuff. I have a ton of that stuff. It's now used as a splice box. Basically, all the original wires that they used would come through and they pass them over the panel. This one here is a Silent Night 5207. That is a fully functional 8-zone, I think, fire alarm panel, an older one from the 80s. Excuse me. And this is used only as a dialer. Now, what that means, it's a communicator. Basically what that means is when you trip a fire alarm that's monitored, it has to communicate with a central station. It's generally done through regular old phone line. So you have a phone line that's connected. The fire alarm goes off. The phone line comes in from the phone company, goes to the panel first, and there's a relay in there that if that phone line is not dedicated, it's used by other people. If they happen to be on the phone, a relay will activate and it will open the line to disconnect the call. Then it'll close it to get a dial tone. It'll also disconnect the downstream so that if there are phones there, they won't work. Dials through, uses a communication format. There's a handful of them, but this uses the most commonly ones called Contact ID. You can Google that. It's a standard touch tone format that alarm systems use. Basically, it sends through, I think, a zone information, like a zone number. It's just numbers. And type of alarm. They did all kinds of fire, supervisory, trouble, burglar, panic, medical, 24-hour monitoring. It's a whole standard. It's a bunch of standardized stuff. And in this case, all this big fancy system did was sent through fire alarm because it couldn't do anything else. In fact, when I first took this over, it did not send troubles through. Now, trouble, if you don't know, essentially all fire panels are supervised, and what that means is through various electronic means, generally a little bit of a voltage over things and a resistor, it sends a small current through all of the loops to verify that they're still there. And if there's a cut wire, it won't see the resistance at the end, and it will put the panel into trouble. And generally we want to know about that because that means something's broken. So when the fire alarm goes off, fire alarm panels have relays on them that will control things that need to be controlled in a fire alarm situation. Elevator recall, air handlers turning on, smoke ejectors, door closers, whatever, all kinds of things that need or you want to happen in a fire alarm. And one of the relays was unused, so it was tied into the dialer. And when the fire alarm tripped, the relay closed. It tripped the zone in this panel that basically was a fire alarm, and it would dial through and say fire alarm. It wouldn't send a trouble through. It wasn't wired that way. I figured out a way to do it with another relay that would trip, and it instead of closing it, it would open the line and it would make it not see the resistor and put the panel into trouble, and then it would send through as a fire alarm trouble. If that stuff doesn't make sense, please ask about it. I know some of it's complicated. I've been doing it for a long time. That's the best. I'm probably not the best teacher in the world, so that's kind of how that worked. Now this gray box here, I have that. They since updated a lot of the stuff, and this was sitting on the floor during one of the inspections. I asked the dude if I could have it. He said, sure, I didn't care. This is a standard electric time leased line dialer. So this was tied in through a phone system, through a phone line, and this is how ancient fire alarms would communicate. It had, I haven't actually fired it up, but it has some old school electronics in it that were able to communicate through to old receivers in a fire alarm system, or in a central station. So one of these days I'll figure it out and post a video about it. And let's see, what else is there? That's pretty much it. So let me play this again. The actual panel you don't see very well. That's it right there. That's a Simplex 4005. That's what was there when it started. It's not there anymore. It's 4007 now. I'll get into that in more detail in another video, in the next video. But basically, they needed to upgrade the system, add stuff in the pool area. And they chose to swap that out with a Simplex 4007, which is a hybrid system, which does conventional and addressable. Very briefly, conventional systems are the most common thing. They're cheaper. It's a big loop of stuff with a resistor on it. So you trip it, and it just, one zone or one area goes off. Addressable is different. It's more like a computer network. Every device has an address, and when it trips, it sends that through. So that's better in a lot of ways if you have the money for it, because then the central station will get, instead of Wing 2 or like a cafeteria, they will get smoke detector by room 207, which obviously I'm a volunteer fireman myself, and when we get a call, it's very nice to have that information to know what to look for when you get a fire alarm in, because that's ultimately who gets that information is they dispatch, it calls through, they call into the local dispatch center, they dispatch the fire department over the radio, and they tell you what they got, and then you go figure it out. That's kind of how it works. But so this system is just what was there at the time. It's not there anymore, and that's pretty much it. Let's see here. Yeah, you really can't see anything. That's just me resetting it. Oh, so once you reset this one, I had to go back and reset the 5207, the dialer, which I would forget to do sometimes, and I wouldn't get restorals. So you'll see me do that. So this is reset. Turns the bells off and everything. I already reset the pull station. Obviously, you saw that. Now I got to go over here and reset this, and this is what actually sends a restoral through to our central station. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, please ask if I missed anything, and I will tell you about it. So have a good day.